Everybody, my name's Warren. I'm filling in for Tony while he's away. You'll be glad to hear he's back next week, so just have to get through this one and then we'll be back to normal service. Let me pray before I begin. Father God, thank you for the honour of speaking, but I'm aware of the fact that I'm a fool in most ways, and I just ask, Father, that you would take my foolish words and speak to people how you want them to hear, God, that they would be able to look past me and my presentation, and that your Spirit will speak into the hearts of people. Amen. Amen. All right, good morning. I'm going to provoke you, first of all, today. Let me see if I can get this working. I struggle with this every week. That's what we're talking about today. Why rest? Okay, good start. But before we talk about that, I want to ask, how many of you would admit to being murderers? Any murderers here? No? No? What about thieves? Anyone want to admit to being a thief? Or an adulterer? Or a liar? Oh no, we would never do those things, would we? Oh, hang on. Okay, we've got one who wants to admit to one of those. However, if I was to say to you, how many of you have honoured the Sabbath? How many of you would admit to breaking that one? How many of you think that murdering someone is worse than breaking the Sabbath? I do. I definitely do. But God doesn't. And that's a really interesting point for us to start on, just to realize that God, when he created the list of 10 commandments, he didn't start with the behaviors that we should follow. The first 4 commandments, actually, here are the 10 commandments. I've made them a little simpler, okay, rather than quoting directly from Exodus. But if you look at the first 4, you'll see this: have no other gods before me, make no other idols, you shall not misuse the name of the Lord, and then remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. That is a commandment with the same force and same importance as do not lie, do not covet, do not murder, and the other ones that we think are really, really important. So before I get into it, we're just going to have a little question and answer. There's no right or wrong at this stage. I'm just curious as to what you hear, or what you think, sorry. Why do you think that God put honor the Sabbath in with the commandments? Anybody?
To have a day to focus on him, for example?
To have a day to focus on him. Great, thank you. Any other ideas?
To rest.
To rest. Okay. Yes.
To show our trust in him.
To show our trust in him. Great.
To look forward to the future and what waits us.
To look forward to the future and what waits for us. Any more?
Because he is the point.
Because what, sorry?
He is the point.
He is the point. Oh, I like that. We're done for today. Thank you. What's vital to understand about the order of the 10 commandments is this. The first 3 help us to establish who God is and what our relationship to him should be. The 4th one, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy, is an opportunity for us to put those first 3 into practice. And from those first 4, we are then able to look at how we should treat others. But if we don't practice well the first 4, we can't do the last 6, or at least not in the way that God had in mind. And this is really the key that I want to focus on today. When we talk about why rest, it's a commandment. Yeah, honor the Sabbath. But we have to understand the why he's saying that before we can truly understand what that means to us in our life. And before we can understand this concept, we need to just put it into context. We need to think about, oh, I think I just missed a bunch. There you go. That's good. Here we go. To understand why stopping matters so much, we need to remember first who it was that heard these commandments. Okay? Who wrote the Ten Commandments? Or who was with God when God wrote the Ten Commandments? Moses. Okay. Moses was the first one within the Jewish culture to write down the story of God, write down the Ten Commandments. We have the Mosaic law, which was the law that was given to God. When he was writing the law, when he was talking and presenting the commandments, you have to understand the culture and the context in which he was presenting this. The Jews at this point had lived for 400 years in Egypt as slaves. Now, we can't imagine what that's like. We can't imagine what kind of culture and what kind of environment that is, because we live in a very soft culture. We live in a culture where if we don't get Saturday and Sunday off, oh, I'm being abused. It's terrible. I had to work an extra day this week. Oh, you know what? I had to do 2 hours extra on Tuesday. Oh, it's the worst week ever. And these are genuine concerns in our culture. And so we don't fully appreciate the need for Sabbath. The Jews were slaves for 400 years. They didn't get weekends off. They didn't have Netflix. Imagine. They could not go home and chill. They were conditioned to understand that their existence depended on their production. They were told, you have this much to produce, and you will do it on pain of death. There was no concept of rest now in their culture. They were judged by their production. And one of the first things that God wanted to do with the Jewish people was, yes, he wanted to rescue them and take them out of Egypt. But having got them out of Egypt, he then had to work to get Egypt out of them. They had to understand that the culture that they had been brought up in was not God's culture. It wasn't what he wanted for them. And we now look back on it and we think, well, Sabbath's not that important because I get Friday and Saturday off. I'm already relaxing for 2 days. But let me just ask you, how many of you really relax for 2 days? How many of you use that time to just focus on God, to worship, to read the Bible, to know him better, to enjoy his creation, his people? Or how many of us use those 2 days, if you do get 2 days, to just do the tasks that need to get done? The things I couldn't do in the week, the odd jobs, the shopping, the laundry, to deal with this task or that task, to catch up on all of the Netflix shows that I've missed, to spend 4 hours on my phone and contact everybody about things. We have to recognize that our culture is Egypt. We now live in our version of Egypt, where we are judged on our production, on our output. God constantly wanted them to remember where they came from and recognize that through the relationship that he wanted to have with them, they were different from that now. They didn't need to live with those values. They didn't need to be the same as all of the cultures around them. I covered this briefly last week, but they weren't now judged on their production. Their value wasn't what they made. And I think that we sometimes have lost that concept, and we think that this culture that we now live in is the one that defines for us success. We strive for the same goals. We focus so much on making money so that one day we can rest, that we forget that God commanded us to rest today and trust Him for what's coming. I'm going to do something that might be a little uncomfortable for some of you now, but I would like us, just where you are, to get into little groups of 3 or 4 people. And I want you to just have a couple of minutes just to think, what is Egypt today? What is the culture that we live in that is at odds with the way that God is telling us to live? What are those things that we have accepted as being the things that must be done and the goals that must be achieved that are stopping us from recognizing the culture that God wants to create in us? Okay? So just turn around wherever you are. If you're an introvert, feel free to sit in complete silence. That's fine. If you're an extrovert, I know that you'll do the right thing and make the silence disappear. So just turn around in little groups of 3 and 4 and just talk about what is the prevailing Egyptian culture for us today. Go for it.
La primera de cómo se está manejando ahora nuestra vida de hoy. We think we deserve
All right, let's come back together. I think this one you could probably keep going all day. Does anybody have anything they can offer us as examples? What did you talk about? Love? I know that you had lots to talk about. Oh, okay. What did your group say?
Talked about a few things, but one thing is like, the economy, that's when because draft is like.
Oh, I need the green mic. Hang on. Sorry. One second, I've got myself into a bit of a mess here. Hello? 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 Hello?
So really, we talked about two things. It was like we don't necessarily pay attention to what we choose to focus on. So Instagram or social media, that it could just draw us in, but really we're making a choice. And if we're passive about it, it's consuming us. But Karen also mentioned the economy and how we can be trapped in the grind, so to speak. Of I have to provide, I have to keep a roof over my head, I gotta keep moving forward, I gotta plan for retirement or whatever. So those things we have to be intentional about putting our eyes on the Lord and what He wants for us on that Sabbath.
Great. Any other thoughts around the room? Come on over here.
We talked about consuming, but like getting stuff. We need more stuff, more stuff, more stuff, and it's the only thing we do.
Yes, right.
You're working all the day and then when you get home, you are so tired that you don't want to think about anything. You just want to watch Netflix and consume things and that.
Anybody else? Jesus?
El profesionismo, lanzar perfecto como cristiano, como trabajador, en general, ser perfectos. Como somos y como somos.
Okay, so you said the idea of perfectionism, that whether it's in our work or within our faith, we want to be perfect and we can never stop until we are.
Yeah, we spoke about the fact that we're living in a culture of comparison and judging others as well, and laziness. We live in a culture of technology being prevalent. It's easy to be lazy. Yeah.
Great. That's a really good one as well, because I don't know who said it, but somebody smarter than I once said, you only compare to the people who have more than you. You never compare to the people who have less. And so life never seems good enough. And so you're always envious of people who have more, but we're never conscious of the people who have less. So what I hope that you've seen in that brief chat is that we can become like zombies. We just go through life and we never stop to realize, what on earth am I doing here? It just never seems to end because we don't have a partition in our day or in our week where we stop and say, hang on, this is the Lord's. I am the Lord's. And He is enough. And He has promised that He will provide. And so the question for us is not only whether we're busy, we're all busy. It's whether we're still thinking like slaves. And unfortunately, a lot of the times the answer is yes, we are still thinking like slaves. And we can't rest, and this is going to be a hard truth for some of us, but I can say this because it's been my experience. We can't rest because we don't trust God. You remember a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about how we know the truth, but we don't have the life and we don't see the way because we stopped at hearing the truth and we never put it into practice. And so the reality for me has been, and I've been forced to accept this the hard way, is that I can't rest because I don't trust God. And I can say confidently that that is the case for a lot of you here too. You see, our rest must come from our relationship with God. If we truly know Him, we will learn to rest. If we truly believe that He is who He says He is, and that He fulfills His promises, and that He will provide for us, then I don't have to keep going. As someone who's self-employed, this is a constant battle for me because I don't have a boss. I don't have a colleague who'll pick up the slack. If I don't do it, it doesn't get done. And it has been a question for me for years. When is enough? When can I say, I'm just going to leave that, knowing that it's not going to get done until I come back to it? There is not a day I don't finish work with 300 open tasks and start the day with another 300 that arrived overnight. It's every single day. And it is always an incredible challenge for me to say, I'm just going to leave. I'm just going to stop. I'm not going to open my email. And unfortunately, what tends to happen is this. This is the new slave master. I don't want to get into a, sociological whatever, but this thing that you gladly put in your pocket is our new slave master. It commands us to always be available. It commands us to never switch off, to never rest. It dings us with all of the tasks that you didn't do. And we are absolutely trapped by these things. And we've welcomed it. But I do want to give you a little bit of hope. There is this dreadful science, I'm not going to talk about this long, called gamification. And gamification is a science that they have used to work out how to get you to do things that ordinarily you don't want to do. And all of these companies are masters at it. It's not you. Okay? I don't want to get you feeling guilty. You do this because they have designed a system that keeps us on it. And so we need to design a system that gets us off it. And what I was talking about last week about the idea of why small groups is just a tiny little example of the value of accountability. In my own life, I am an addict of my phone. An addict. I admit that. I confess that to you all. So what do? I got together with a Christian friend of mine and said, this can't go on. We've got to stop this. So we have a challenge each week. We have a set time that we're allowed to spend on our phones. If we break that, I have to pay him 50 euros a week.
Wow.
That's a big amount of money for me. Do you know how many times I've broken it? None. Because I don't want to pay 50 euros a week. But I have a brother who's walking alongside me to say, I'll help you. And I want to be free of that too. That's where the small group comes into faith. We aren't walking alone. And if our phone can't be left alone for 5 minutes, we're breaking commandment number 2. We have an idol. Here it is. For many of us, it's a great invention, very helpful. but we've let it sneakily become an idol. And going past just our phones, Netflix is not Sabbath. The idea of just consuming entertainment is just as, what was it called? John Mark Comer says, distracting ourselves to death. And when we're distracted, we cannot focus on God. If we can't get into silence and, dare I say, boredom, we aren't allowing a space for God. What he wishes for us is to receive life through Sabbath. It's not escaping life. It certainly isn't meant to be another burden that we take on. God is saying, I love you. And I promise to provide for you. I'm not going to provide for you the things that the Egyptian culture says that you need, because you don't need those things. I'm going to provide for you the life that I know is best for you. And in order to do that, you've got to trust me. You have got to trust that I know the best thing for you and that I will provide it for you. And it is not because of your effort. And that is a really difficult thing for people like me and you to truly accept, that it is not down to your effort. If it was down to your effort, then the hardest working people would be the richest people. That's not the case. I know a lot of people who work incredibly hard, who are absolutely stuck in poverty. They're not lazy, as our culture would like to tell us. They're not drug addicts or alcoholics. They are a victim of the real Egyptian culture that is not designed to fulfill us. It is designed to trap us and turn us into slaves. So Sabbath, when we talk about Sabbath, and we'll go on to other aspects of rest in a moment, Sabbath is not meant to be this day where we're bored out of our minds and can't do anything. That's not what God is calling us to. He told us to keep it holy. Do you know what holy means? Set apart. Different. Honoring him. And what he wants for Sabbath is it's a day when we remember him. We worship him. We read about him. We enjoy his creation. We enjoy his people. And it is a day that truly looks different from others. Karen and I, since the beginning of this year, have been making an incredible effort to put Sabbath into practice. And we don't do it on Sundays. Why? Because we're here, we normally have things to do here. This is work. Now, if I'm sat where you are, perhaps it's not work. But what I'm saying is it doesn't have to be Sunday. We have chosen every Friday night to try and start Sabbath with a meal where we light a candle, not because it's magic, but because it reminds us that Sabbath starts now. And the next day, all through Saturday, we don't do the housework. Karen doesn't do the housework. We don't go and check our emails. We don't do all of the tasks that are just about producing and getting on top. And I'll tell you, it's really difficult. We both found it really difficult because it means that the other 6 days, we have to plan for the 7th day. It requires more effort, but the rest that it produces is quite amazing. It's more effort the other 6 days to make sure that I've got that one day where I can just really switch off and be bored and visit friends and focus on God. And then I start the rest of the week with more energy. I'm more productive. But what we also learn is it's not just about Sabbath. Rest is not something that should only be confined to a single day. For me, it's meant disciplining myself to say, I'm going to finish work at this time, and I'm going to finish work at that time. I'm not going to come home and keep working. I'm not going to bring the worries home. And I think I can speak for Karen when I say we have so far failed 1,000 times this year. We're not saying that for us it's become an easy or natural thing, because to be quite honest, we haven't been living like that for the previous 22 years of Karen's life and 49 years of my life. We have been living as the slave in Egypt. We've been confusing weekend with Sabbath. We've been confusing consuming media as rest. And it's a really, really different thing. And I just want to say Sabbath isn't a burden that God wants you to perform. It's his gift that he gives to you every single week. And I just want to ask you to consider that you put that gift into practice. Don't fool yourself into thinking that you're already doing it. And I just want you to think about not what's the perfect Sabbath, because that is a question that I'm afraid I can't answer. There are probably much better, more qualified people than me that can, but I can't answer it. But I would ask you to start thinking about what is preventing you from stopping. Take some time this week and reflect on that. What is honestly preventing you from rest? Real rest. Now, for some of you, you have these wonderful things called children, which Karen and I opted out of. But children, they're apparently quite needy, and they need a lot of your time. I don't want you to leave today thinking, oh, if I can't find 24 hours of rest, that means I'm not obeying God. We have some friends in our home group, well, I'll tell you, Justin and Paige, who, for those who are praying, did make it back into Spain today. They realized that they couldn't make 24 hours. It's just not possible for them. So they said, we're going to start with 12. Every Sunday? Yes.
So just want to say that you made me realize when you said about the children.
So you made me realize when you mentioned the children, when they were little with mine, I don't know, one day I think God inspired me and I thought like, oh, I have all this to-do list and then I'll be with you. And then I thought, you are the most important thing in my life. First I play with you, I get you settled and have a good time, and then I go for my list. But today you made me realize I'm making the same mistake with my grandchildren now. Because I'm making all these to-do lists at night and early in the morning before they wake up, and then I'm tired, but I play with them. I have to do reverse. So thank you, Warren.
No problem. And you've quite nicely brought me onto my closing section. If you view a Sabbath as just a responsibility, a law that has to be followed, you're never going to truly enter into rest. Going right back to what I said at the beginning. If our relationship with God is not right, if our knowledge of who he is and what he's promised, and his knowledge of you, if you don't trust in those things, you will never be able to rest. So, in closing today, I just want to say this. Don't look at this as a thing I've got to do. Look at this as a great way for you to evaluate your relationship with God. Can I rest? No. Okay, there's something wrong with how I view God. Maybe you don't know enough about him. Maybe that's a call to get into the Bible and read about him. Maybe, and this is something that we're very prone to today, and I personally have been very prone to, I've used my own personal experience of God to define God's character. That in today's age is really very prominent and is a terrible, dangerous thing to do. That should certainly influence what I think of God. But you can't judge God's character by your tiny, tiny experience of Him. That's why you need the wider church to remind you and to demonstrate a bigger experience. And that's why you need the scriptures, so you can be reminded of who He really is. This week as you go, please just think, am I able to rest? And why not? And I think you'll find at the heart of it is, I don't really trust that God will provide. And that is a beautifully honest place to start as you search for rest. Let me pray. Father God, I thank